The time has come. A new year is upon us. I have grown more white hair as we say goodbye to 2020. In this video, I'll be counting down my top 10 games of the year. Now, just to lay out how I did the list. This is of the games I've played, so they don't all have to be from 2020. Also, remember, this is my own personal list, so don't get mad at me if your game didn't make it. Trust me, you probably don't want my weird taste in video games. Number 10 goes to Alice Madness Returns. I have yet to beat Alice Madness Returns, but make no mistake, it's of no fault of the game. Alice Madness Returns is a game of great quality. I really loved the unique weapons and how they played into the different tactics you would use for taking down the various enemies. The variety of the enemies throughout the various unique and different settings were very enjoyable to fight against. None of the enemies were annoying. Some were more challenging than others, but always fair. I'd love to see more video games like Alice Madness Returns. Games that use old fairy tales and books to craft a dark narrative and setting. There's much potential, and one IP that always comes to mind for me is The Wizard of Oz. I've always thought The Wizard of Oz would make a great setting for a video game. Number 9 goes to Gun. Gun is a game that I had played through before, so I knew what I was getting into. What I love about Gun is that it's the perfect adventure and revenge fantasy. It doesn't have some narrative that'll make you think. Not that that's bad to have, but Gun is simply fun. Take down the big evil group while you get to play as the badass gunslinger. While the graphics look ugly, make no mistake about the gameplay because it still definitely holds up. Gun is the perfect game to play through for a few hours and leave with a sense of real accomplishment. For more on this game, watch my review/analysis. Number 8 goes to a game called Twin Breaker. Twin Breaker is a brick-breaking game created by Colin Morality and Chris Reagan. I listened to the podcast Sacred Symbols, which is how I found out about this game. Brick-breaking games is a genre which I think has more potential. Well, Twin Breaker delivers on that potential. It's a lot more than a standard Breakout or Arkanoid clone. The game utilizes the dual sticks on modern controllers. In the game, you use both sticks for 2 and then 4 paddles. There's creative pickups and even a story. Some people didn't like the story, but I appreciated it being there. Twin Breaker clearly tried and succeeded at doing something new with the brick-breaking genre. The only downside is that the game does get really difficult when you have to worry about full directions. Number 7 goes to the Dark Pictures anthology, Man of Medan. Supermassive games will play a role again as we go on, but first I must mention the genre of this game. This is one of those choice-based games like Telltale's Walking Dead. The difference though is that Supermassive games are the best at making these types of games. You feel like your choices matter more. Well, Supermassive games are working on a series called the Dark Pictures Anthology. It's basically a bunch of horror choice-based games that are coming out every year that aren't connected. Now, I'm gonna be honest and say that Man of Medan is the weakest of the Supermassive games on this list. That being said, it still packs an immersive story that'll keep you hooked. Plus, I really love the setting of the game. It's set on an old abandoned World War II battleship. Number 6, SSX3. The most recent game on this list is SSX3. I started playing it in December after finally buying it. It was on my list of games I wanted for a while. Well, having since played it, I must say the game is fucking rad. It's in many ways similar to another game I love called Burnout 3 Takedown. Like Burnout 3, SSX3 has racing plus other modes, a kick-ass soundtrack, and an arcadey feel with just enough realism sprinkled in. Also, it might be cringe to say, but while playing SSX3, I did something I did with Burnout 3. I created a whole narrative and backstory in my head, but that's another story for a different day. Number 5 goes to Spec Ops: The Line. I never gave Spec Ops: The Line a chance back in the day because the cover and the name just scream generic military shooter. Then throughout the years I would hear about this game being underrated. After finally playing it, I must say it's very different from any other military shooter I've ever played. Taking place in the ruins of Dubai, you play as Americans as you might expect, however there is a twist. That twist is that your enemy is actually also American soldiers, rogue ones. The game shows the consequences of war and makes you question if your character is actually doing more harm than good by being there. The only negative I would give this game is that I feel like it does drag on longer than it needs to. Number 4 is actually the next game in the Dark Picture Anthology, the next one after Man of Medan as we mentioned earlier, the Dark Picture Anthology Little Hope. This is the next supermassive game on this list, and in my opinion a step up from Man of Medan. After a bus crash, you play as a group trying to survive the abandoned town of Little Hope. I'm really trying not to spoil these supermassive games, so I can't dive into the story too much. For me though, I will say I love the setting in Little Hope. Part of the game involves the old witch trials and how they factor in. Something works really well about a game being set in an old New England town. Obviously it had to be set there for the witch trials to make sense, but still it adds an eeriness to it all. A foggy, small old New England town at night surrounded by woods is just spooky. My number 3 pick goes to The Last of Us Part 2. Oh boy, this is going to be a controversial pick for sure. One side really hates this game and the other side really loves it. For me, I fall somewhere in the middle. I think the game definitely has issues, but what it does do great, it does really great. The issues though are with the story. I think The Last of Us 2's story is a step down from the first one. While the character Abby grew on me a bit, I'm still not a fan of her. Plus, the weakest part of the story is the first half of Abby's part. That being said, I still think the story has a point about revenge it wanted to make and did. You understand the other side and you realize that all the characters are in the gray zone morally. It's not you versus the evil side. Again, I think there's a lot of valid criticism and the story could have and should have been a lot better. That being said, some of the other areas where the game shines is in its graphics and gameplay. The game is legitimately fun to play. Even its layout for crafting and weapon selection is a lot better than the first one. The intelligence of the AI is both impressive and it makes for many strategies while you're getting through the enemies. There's one time I remember where I had run out of ammo and supplies. It was legitimately a half hour of crawling, throwing bricks, strategizing, and it was damn fun. Finally, while not super important, I will say that the graphics are amazing. I think it's probably the best looking video game I've played. Number 2 goes to a game that you definitely weren't expecting. Dablon Star Io. Okay, so this is a game that only I'd put on a top 10 list, and you've probably never heard of it. This is a free-to-play online multiplayer game on the computer. You don't need to download it or anything. The game is simple, but it's goddamn fun. I have been playing Dablon Star Io since high school and have put a ton of hours into it. The basics of the game is that you get money from collecting pellets and destroying other ships. With this money, you go down one of many upgrade paths for your ship. There's many options for how you want to upgrade your ship, what cannons you want, or even if you just want to go with a battering ram. There's a lot of variety delivered in a simple, easy to get into game. Additionally, you can also buy small AI-controlled ships as part of your fleet. There's also big mini-boss ships in the middle. Pro tip, by the way, if you do play this, you want to pick up the green gems. Number 1, Until Dawn. Until Dawn is a masterpiece. Some might disagree, and if you hate choice-based games, I get that. However, I like choice-based games, and Until Dawn is the best one. Again, it's difficult to properly convey a lot of things about the story when it comes to these supermassive games, because I don't want to spoil anything. What I will say is that Until Dawn has twists that are done really well and are legitimately unexpected in this plot. When watching horror movies, we always laugh at the dumb decisions made. Well, Until Dawn lets you test how you would do. I did really good and I kept all but one person alive. However, there were definitely moments where I went, fuck, that was the wrong decision. Unlike the other games in this genre, I think that Until Dawn has the most replayability as well. Another cool thing, and something I've personally never seen before, is how it uses the PlayStation 4 controller. There's moments where you have to hold the controller still in order to be quiet. I didn't even know that was possible. All the characters in Until Dawn are great as well. They all stand out and serve different roles. This makes me question what would have happened if certain characters died earlier in the game. Until Dawn is a game I definitely plan on replaying again this October. It's an incredibly well written and well made game. A game that stands up top its own genre as the pinnacle of achievement. The only bad part about Until Dawn is that you only get to experience it for the first time one time.